presentation by Jim Montgomery on the concept of a residential refuse collection zone to Webster's. So Jim and John, I'm going to hand the time to you guys on this one.
So we started tonight by talking about the hidden gems of Webster, and now we're going to talk about the garbage of Webster. So we're going to be talking about residential refuse collection zones, or the concept that said Mr. Supervisor. So we're going to jump over this. What is a residential refuse collection zone? It's a mouthful, and I wanted to start by saying that we are not proposing to get into the garbage collection business. I think the last time I was before the board, this would come up during the property maintenance presentation, and it is not something we want to do. We're not like the city. We're not proposing to start collecting garbage. A residential refuse collection zone is a zone or defined area within the town that's created and enforced jointly by the highway superintendent and code enforcement. Zones are assigned specific days of the week that refuse haulers may collect refuse, and this is residential only. It's important to note that as well. This is not for our commercial properties. All zones will be displayed on a master refuse collection zone map, and this map will be made available to both residents of the town and the refuse hauler. Haulers are made aware of all zones in which days they are permitted to collect from each one. Information is also provided to the haulers upon application of refuse haulers permit from our town clerk when they come to get that. And what would the benefits of these be? I'm going to go over 4 of them, but as Dolly, our town clerk, is very aware, and I'm sure Mr. Supervisor, you're very aware, you get a lot of calls about this. We have a lot of problems in the town right now with the collection of refuse and how things are getting switched up day to day. People don't know when the refuse is coming. And, my office gets at least 1 call a week regarding that, and I think that this is going to help with that, which is some kind of regulation. But anyway, first, visual blight. Limiting the number of days that refuse haulers can pick up on any given street means that refuse containers will only be stored at the curb on these specific days, as opposed to containers littering the curb all week long. Blowing refuse, because refuse containers will only be stored at the curb a few days per week, the chances of loose refuse being blown throughout the neighborhood is greatly decreased. Residential noise, garbage trucks are loud, we all know that. These vehicles will not only travel down any given street or neighborhood 1 to 2 times per week. And then residential traffic, due to their large size, garbage trucks traveling in neighborhoods and on major roadways often congest traffic, and while they're performing their work, and this will now be limited throughout the town as well. So we're not reinventing the wheel here. This is something that's actually done in other municipalities, one of them being the town of Greece. The village also does something similar. They allow refuse to be picked up Monday through Wednesday. So they're so small that it would just be 1 zone, I guess you could say. The town of Greece, though, currently administers and has written into their town code what they call the residential solid waste collection areas. There are a total of 7 zones or areas, each having specific days that you can see on the map that refuse haulers are allowed to collect from. The enforcement of this is done proactively by the Commissioner of Public Works, which is the most equivalent to our highway superintendent, who provides this information to the haulers when the wheeler permit is issued. And it's enforced by both DPW, their Department of Public Works, and code enforcement by observing violations of these applications. The applicable town codes and reacting accordingly. I spoke to the superintendent or the Commissioner of Public Works in Greece, and they are very fond of this model. I guess we can do a little story time, and I'll read you what their code says quickly. A town board authorization upon recommendation of the Commissioner of Public Works, the town board is authorized from time to time by resolution to determine this and establish residential solid waste and recycling collection areas and the days of the week within which the residential solid waste and recycling collection business may operate within those residential solid waste and recycling collection areas. Each such area will have collection occur in a minimum of 2 days per week. Such resolution shall approve a map setting forth the residential solid waste and recycling collection areas and days of the week within which the residential solid waste and recycling collection business may operate within those residential solid waste recycling areas. And then D of that same code section says the addition of residential solid waste and recycling collection area designation, all residential solid waste and recycling areas of collection and the allowed days of the week for the collection shall remain in full force in effect unless subsequently modified by the resolution. So essentially what this is saying is that refuse haulers can operate during these days of these zones, and they cannot operate otherwise. So how do we start this process? Josh and I guess, oversimplified what we believe the way to get started is, and we would draft the applicable code sections into our ordinances. We would configure the proposed zones and boundaries, which we would need help from the highway commissioner, which we've already actually sat down with him and gone over a couple different options. We would then present that to the town board and hold a public hearing. We would revise the refuse hauler permit application with our town clerk, and we would notify refuse haulers of these changes. Future benefits, that's really, I think, where this is going to stand out. So, pollution reduction. A switch to a refuse collection zone model with the annual equipment inspection requirement would reduce carbon emissions from truck exhaust, prevent leaking of harmful fluids on town roads, which runs into town storm drains and pollutes town soils. When I spoke to our highway commissioner, he did say that he does receive a number of these calls every year where refuse haulers, their hydraulics lines would break during their run, and the hydraulic fluid goes onto the road, and a resident would call and say, there's hydraulic fluid all over the street, and then our highway department needs to go out and clean that up. What these inspections would do essentially is it would make the refuse hauler company go to the town, to the highway department, and have their vehicles inspected annually by our staff. Also with that, I talked to the highway superintendent, like I said, and he said that he would ensure that there was hazardous waste spill kits on board these vehicles as well. And then this one also is very important. We want to increase the standards for our residents. So increasing regulations of refuse haulers within the town of Webster will raise the standard of refuse collection companies and provide residents with a higher level of service and reliability that they deserve from these private companies. Like I said, we're having an issue right now. It doesn't matter which company it is, but we're having issues with companies with their services being provided to our residents, and we take that very seriously. And with that, I can take any questions from the board.
You realize by doing this function, cost will increase down the road.
I don't realize that when I was here. I know that I don't have to.
Because of the regulations you're going to put on these waste haulers, by only being able to go on a street, they're going to require more vehicles to operate the business. So that means there's a cost increase to them to work in the town of Webster.
So my rebuttal to that would be, we would actually be looking at, we actually already collect how many vehicles each refuse hauler has, and we would operate our zones or try to have enough zones so that it wouldn't be the case.
Okay, you didn't say that.
You're right, I didn't.
And that might be my fault, as I said to Jim and Josh. Can you really truncate down this presentation, because it's an introduction of something that heretofore hasn't, well, I don't think it's been talked about. And within truncating it down, one of the things that Jim said in here, or didn't say, but I would like to do if we do venture off on this, here's how, on the initial steps at the end, he has notified refuse haulers of the changes. I would like to, somewhere in this process, talk to the refuse haulers. To find out, Bill, what you just said. I don't want unintended consequences as we leave the station in such a process. Anywhere along those initial steps, when you can, present to the town board, if, whatever, you gotta set a public hearing. Maybe people will come in here and scream bloody murder. We're not gonna have something like that. You really want to flush out, no pun intended, all unintended consequences. I don't want something where all of a sudden the average cost quarterly, I think that's how I get billed, goes from, don't quote me on this number, $50 to $100. because the town basically became an over-regulatory place. We're more talking about the fact of, and I've been getting these complaints too, some of these streets have garbage haulers going up and down them Monday through Saturday. That stinks, no pun intended. I mean, that is, with our residential neighborhoods and whatever, that means you got those garbage bins and the recycle bins down at the side of the road every single day of the week.
Is that Monday through Friday, Minister?
I don't think that that's an unintended consequence of where we're at now. So, and when this went up on, Bill, when we put this up on the agenda, I got reached out to by 4 or 5 people, some of them were the usual suspects that you would know, who said, you're gonna get into the garbage business, we're gonna get rid of private. I'm like, no, I have no desire to ever even talk about that. We are trying to figure out a way to not have a street have garbage haulers on it 6 days a week. So this seems to be the easiest way, and there is a precedent. Now, Jim, like you said, the Greece government people said, we really like this model. Well, maybe because I come from private industry. That's why if we venture out with it, I want to talk to who we have licensed right now. And I want to sit down with them and just, hey, I'm not doing something for the benefit of the haulers, but I also want to know if there's an unintended consequence that all of a sudden we're like, wow, for coffee with 3 or 4 people that are, the different haulers in town, I never thought about that. None of us thought about that. So we got to go back to the drawing board, maybe this isn't a good idea. I don't want unintended consequences. And I certainly don't want this to cause increased cost. So, if I would have let you have 10 pages, you probably would have done
By no means I think we're going to do this arbitrarily. There's a lot of data that we have to collect. And it really comes down to just trying to help the residents with their collection issues that they're currently having now. Because there is a lot of issues with people not having their garbage collected. And this will help because we're essentially telling the hauler, or regulating the hauler, when they can go to each zone. And it's going to allow them to have structure to their operation.
Yeah. Didn't you say that the village, when you just said they just did something where it's now Monday through Wednesday? So is that a recent thing?
I talked to the village building inspector and code compliance person, and they told me that it is a Monday through Wednesday schedule.
It's interesting because I do live in the village, and the hauler that we were using switched it to a Thursday pickup.
So either he was incorrect or your hauler is operating on Saturday.
Well, they're not my hauler anymore.
Okay.
And that's the other thing, when we get all of these complaints, that is one of the things that people can do. If you're unhappy with your service, you can certainly switch, which we
Absolutely
did.
can. Absolutely.
So that's actually the first that I've heard of that in the village, so it's curious. And this has been discussed a couple of times, but it usually came from residents who wanted to bring it before us, that they were looking to limit the days of pickup and all the totes that were out on the curb all week long. But I agree with you, Supervisor, that we need to bring the haulers into the discussion too before we get too far ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, it's a finite number. How many are licensed permitted this year, Dolly? 5? Yeah, so I mean, I think I can have 6 cups of coffee over a 2-week period sitting down.
Oh, I know you can.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. But, yeah, they might have a different, Jim, and I hope you didn't take that out of context. If the government in Greece likes it, well, that's only one side of it.
Correct.
Maybe it makes it easier for them. But like Bill said, that if that causes prices to go up or, whatever, well, then it's, what is it? They say the 3-legged stool. You gotta have, okay, so the government is making out on this thing, they like it. Is the citizen making out on the thing? And is the hauler making out on it? any one of them that doesn't, the stool falls over. So, anecdotal, but that's why I want to talk to the haulers. I think the citizens, I mean, we're the ones that are watchdogging for them. I can't imagine somebody saying, I want to make sure I got garbage trucks on my street 6 days a week. I can't imagine that we're going to get somebody upset and saying that's what they want. But if some semblance of this does come down the pike, and it wouldn't probably kick in until probably 24, because they've already licensed or whatever, you know. And I wouldn't want to fast track this thing either, like I said, no unintended consequences. It seems to make sense, but we don't know what we don't know.
I have no problem with it as long as it's not additional cost to the resident. That's my bottom line. The resident sees no additional cost for this, I have no issues.
Well, Bill, if I remember correctly, the board, we're all residents. So we don't want additional cost to our garbage. But, and I'm not gonna say who my trash hauler is, but they've been my trash hauler for 20 some odd years. Never had a problem. When they come and they're scheduled to come on Tuesday, like clockwork, the recycle comes at 7 a.m., and I better have it down there at 7 a.m. or I'm gonna miss. The garbage, the guys and gals come around, 1 to 3. And so because I'm so used to that, when I got into being supervisor and I'm getting these calls of like, my guy hasn't picked up my garbage in 3 weeks, that's unfathomable to me. Now, some of that's very specific to companies being bought and stuff like that, but the number of stories I've heard of, and right now, we don't have, the citizens call us, you gotta do something about that garbage company. Well, I don't really know, Dolly, if our permit and licensing, has any, like, what do we do? Call them and say, get out there and pick up their garbage? I don't think our permit has anything like that. There is no enforcement, I know. And that enforcement thing that's a slippery slope, Bill. You know what I mean? I'd have to see a lot more on that. But, I don't know. Maybe the haulers are all like, yeah, it's a great idea. Actually, it'll help me on my scheduling and whatever. But I want to sit down and find out if we're missing something.
It's worth more discussion.
Jenny, anything else?
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
We need more facts, we need more data to make a decision. And thanks, Jim, for the work. So I have no issue with my garbage, and I know when they come every Thursday. So, but I know there's issues.
Well, you should keep that carried.
Yeah.
For 20 years.